Hello. I'd like to start with a question. Don't you think every student should have a teacher? My name is Neila. I had the NGO Le Choix de l'école, and I'd like to talk to you about Luca. Now, Luca is a middle school student that comes from Paris's deprived suburbs. Now, when he reached middle school, Luca was struggling in math and hating the subject. As it turns out, in primary school, he had absent teachers who could not be replaced for weeks on. At the beginning of the school year, this year, 62% of secondary schools in France said they were lacking at least one teacher. By 2030, some estimates say that France will be missing 150,000 teachers. That's due to retirements, but that's also due to a significant drop in the number of candidacies at the national exam. As always, it is the students that with the most difficulties and the ones that come from the most difficult and deprived areas that suffer the most from this situation. At Le Choix de l'école, we can't accept that. Our mission is to promote the teaching profession and to encourage young graduates, but also professionals, to become teachers, to embark on the teaching journey in the areas where they are needed the most. Our program is innovative because we talk to people who may not have envisaged the teaching profession in the first place. And we make sure that they can teach secured by a very strong framework of trainings and support. So during their first 2 years of teaching, we train them we give them more than 300 hours of training and support from class management to pedagogy. But most importantly, what we do is we answer their questions and doubts so that they can give the best of themselves to each and every student. So far, we have supported 310 teachers that worked with more than 55,000 students in secondary school, in vocational schools, and more recently in primary schools. So the program works, and it works really well as evaluated with the Ministry of Education, who's our partner, and we are ready to expand. But of course, we need funds. Education is really the thing we built our democracy and our republic on. It is the place where we can fight against inequalities and promote social mobility and opportunity. It is time to bring in together government and civil society to find solutions. Thank you.
Wonderful, very clear, thank you. And I can really feel the love that you have for children and youth, so thank you for the work that you do. Next up, we have Robert Okello from BarefootLaw, using the law to protect vulnerable people across Africa. Stage is yours. That's how you click through the slides.
Can you all hear me? So I'm actually Rhoda Namboze. Lovely to be here. Let me just start by saying our world is unjust. This is a statistical fact. Over 5 billion people are unable to meet their justice needs. This is further made worse in the country I am from, Uganda, where over 80% of the population cannot benefit from the opportunities and protections that the law provides. Many of the people are unable to get access to justice because either of the language, because the language of court in Uganda is English. Many people don't speak English. Courts are far from where most of the population live. Lawyers are expensive. People don't have the time or the ability to access these services. And that's where my organization comes in. Barefoot Law is a non-profit organization in Uganda on a mission to get the law to protect vulnerable people across Africa. We believe that if we are able to get people to understand the law, understand the rights that they have under the law, they will be empowered, they will be able to exercise their rights, they will be able to know what they can do under the law, and this will lead them to be able to peacefully resolve their conflicts. They will be able to thrive. They will be able to get social economic transformation and ultimately equality. We do this by simplifying the law. Get the law in all its legalese, in all its complexities, make it as simple as possible such that the average citizen is able to understand their rights, understand what the law says, what is expected of them, and what they can expect from the law. And in this broadcasting of the law, as we simplify it, we disseminate it across different platforms, social media, radio, text, voice. And when we broadcast this information, this legal information, educate people on their rights, then they get back to us with specific questions and they're able to speak to a lawyer. We have a team of lawyers that can speak to them one-on-one and lead them to some sort of resolution. The fact that we use digital tools means that we are able to reach hard-to-reach places. We are able to overcome some of the barriers that many people face when accessing justice. Some of the approaches, as I mentioned, are outreaches where we go into the field and speak directly to people, radio where we disseminate legal information in a language that people understand, internet-based solutions, which is the law online, and that's on different platforms, low voice, where we can translate the laws and break them down into a language that most people understand if they can't read. And so far, based on how we've been able to operate, we have been able to reach close to 1 million people. And we are hoping that we can reach actually 50 million people across Africa. And we are currently in our expansion stage. We have been in operation for 10 years, and we are hoping that we can share what we have learned and grow and be able to touch more lives and hopefully get partnerships to enable us to do this. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, amazing work. I wish you all the best for the sake of all of us. Next up is Juan Felipe Meza Ramirez from Fundación Puente Digital. And what they do, they're going to tell us. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Juan Felipe. I'm actually representing the Fundación Puente Digital because the founder who was supposed to come here, he wasn't able to do so. We partnered with them, and they are basically trying to close the digital gap that that we would have in the vulnerable city of Choix, which is in Colombia, near Bogota, where 53% of the people living there, they live in extreme poverty. And this issue of this digital gap, it's increasing this inequality in a region like Latin America, particularly Colombia, that is increasing every year. So basically, Puente Digital will close that gap by providing training to children aged between 11 and 18 years old in robotics, in coding, and then 3D printing. So basically they have a program in which they will teach children using language coding like Scratch, for example, and then they will train in robotics using Arduino and other tools, and also in 3D printing using materials that can be found nearby the places where they are educated. So it's a let's say 220 hours program education for those children. And basically what we are here to do, I'm representing them in order to find partners to get the funding they need to increase their capacity. So basically it's a newly created organization. They have been created in 2019. So across the pandemic they did several trainings, and after that they started to scale up. So so far they have been able to train 600 children with a capacity of 200 children per year. And now what they are trying to do is to scale up and being able to get funding partners in order to buy more computers, in order to buy more robotic kits, in order to be able to develop capacity to get more funding partners and to get other logistical partners within cities like Bogota in Colombia, and that's basically what they need. Since I'm representing the founder, so I didn't have so he had the presentation, but I didn't have the opportunity to show you this, and it was in Spanish. So basically, as I said, so they develop robotics, coding, soft skills, and then they have like a project-based training for people that are living in rural areas, so they would adapt and solve the problems they have for their families and the people around. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Closing the digital divide, so important on our way to a more inclusive society. It is my great pleasure to now welcome the final changemaker of this round, Charlotte Allot. The stage is yours.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte, the co-founder of Omni, and we are the life-changing teammates for the 25 million people with reduced mobility. I'm in a wheelchair since I am 4 years old, and moving around with a wheelchair or when we have difficulties to walk is really hard because there are a lot of obstacles. We have steep slopes, we have pavement, public transportation are not always accessible, and existing solutions are really expensive. To give you an order of idea, it costs between 3,000 and 8,000 euros to have a motorization for the wheelchair, and without aids, so it's not affordable for me and for the 25 million people. And solutions are big and difficult to use. That's why we have created Omni. We are the first DNVB to sell directly to our customer, to develop affordable, innovative and sexy solutions. We have created them with our customer. They are involved during all the process. And we have created with them My Omni Trot. That's the first electric scooter that we can use with a wheelchair. We can go everywhere with that. It's 3 times less cheaper than existing solution. And with that, yes, we can go everywhere. We have now 1,000 people, 1,000 users in the France in 2 years. And with that, they use it to go shopping, to go to work, and to go just outdoor with their friend and family, to go bicycle. They have between 12 and 92 years old, and we have a strong impact in their life with mobility, because with that they can go outdoors twice more. In their health, they have less musculoskeletal disorders, and in social inclusion, because they can meet 4 times more people thanks to our solution. And for the planet, it's a good alternative to the car. We receive message every day from our community to say they change their life, they give them freedom, and we are really happy of that. We want to do more, we want to help more people, we want to help hundreds of thousands of people. That's why we are fundraising. We have already committed 1 million, and we are open for smart money up to 500. So if you want to join the adventure, do not hesitate to contact us after the pitch. Thank you so much.
Amazing, thank you so much. What a wonderful, simple yet genius solution. You can actually stay with us right here, and I would like to ask the other changemakers to come back on stage and start the Q&A. We have about 7 to 8 minutes, and I hand over to the jury. You have microphones in front of yourselves. Ask away any questions that you might have to any of the changemakers.
Great. So, Rhoda, it's Rhoda, right? Yeah. Thank you so much for your pitch. It's super inspiring. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your marketing or campaign strategy to reach the hardest to reach places, because as I understand, it's a lot about awareness and education. So how do you reach those people?
I'm actually in charge of communications as well within the organization. So because the communities that we want to reach the most are generally grassroots. One of the things we have realized is very effective is radio, actually, because many people still have feature phones but still have like a radio feature, or they'll share a phone amongst the community, and just they'll listen to different radio shows. We also have an initiative that's called the Law Box. I didn't get a chance to speak about it, but it's essentially it's a rigged out container that we've put in very remote villages that connects our services in the capital city with rural people. It's essentially, it uses internet tools, so they're able to virtually have sessions with our lawyers back in Kampala. And we also just go around and also tell the community members about the work that we do.
Amazing, thank
Wonderful. Other questions? Yeah, over here.
Yeah, for Naila. For young people, what are the objections or the barriers they see to becoming teachers, and how do you measure impact for basically the teachers' vocations you try to build?
Yeah, there are lots of barriers today, unfortunately, for becoming teachers in France and in many other countries. It's, of course, it's always, the first thing that comes to mind is salary, but it's more than salary. It's the status of the teacher within society that is not what it used to be. It used to be seen as a prestigious job, and now it's less than that. Although it is one of the most difficult jobs that you can do, actually, because it requires a lot of intelligence, crisis management, capacity to overcome difficulties, and so on. And so, how do we measure impact? Actually, we have an impact study that we do every year. So we ask teachers many questions before they start, after 1 year, after 2 years, and once they're done with the program, and we see how they evolve on different aspects of competencies, but also on well-being and motivation to continue. And about 60% of our cohorts passed the national test to become teachers and become teachers, full-time teachers. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Another question?
Yeah, maybe one for Charlotte. I was looking at the hardware, which is really impressive. Maybe some people in the background can't see it. So I was just querying what were the boundaries of it, whether you were just selling a scooter or whether you were selling a scooter and a wheelchair, and as well, how were you helping people access to the hardware, which I presumably you mentioned there is a financial hurdle to using it.
Yeah, first we have just developed the fixing systems that allow every manual wheelchair to use the electric scooters, so that's part. And after, with the community, we have developed the electric scooter, this part. It's a scooter, a standard scooter that with more security, with the handle more close to the user and other stuff. So we are selling all the scooter with the fixation, and after that, because people with no wheelchair contact us, we start to sell also wheelchair because it's also people with difficulty to walk that they contact us because they want to use it to go everywhere. So we sell everything now, and it costs €1,000, less than €1,000. So it's really easy. It's less cheap. It's really less expensive, and we propose also ads, and I can talk more about it after if you want.
Thank you. You'll have plenty of chances after the session to also regroup and rejoin in the networking area just behind the benches to go a bit more in detail. Thank you. One more question over here.
Well, first of all, congratulations to the four of you for what you guys are doing. It's fantastic. I'm sure we have a lot of questions, but I'll have to ask Felipe to make sure everybody has a question. I wonder what's the difference between giving your program of 220 hours to an 11 years old versus giving it to an 18 years old? Like, what's the journey of that participant in terms of finding job, or in terms of getting more attracted in that space, in terms of how they develop later on? I don't know if you've studied the journey of the users.
Yeah, so basically what happens in vulnerable places like Choix is that children, they are expected to work at a very early age. So even at 14, they would be already working and they would be expected to work. Many of them will drop out from school. So we deliver those programs like Puente Digital, which is the organization we represent today. They deliver those programs in order to avoid as well a school dropout and motivate the children to continue their journey and their studies. It's also a sensibilization to their parents on the importance of education. Of course, it's not the same thing to teach something to 11-year-old children or 18-year-old children, because some of them would getting ready to start working and could be hired by a company that would be interested on that. But our purpose and what we want to do with this organization is to motivate children so they can continue their studies afterwards. And we are trying to develop programs and partnerships with different universities so they can continue that journey. And it's only 220 hours, but they can afterwards continue studying and hopefully develop the country and close the digital gap I mentioned in the presentation.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Maybe one more, two max.
Okay, Charlotte, maybe a quick word on what's in the future for you guys. Any new products, or is it just maybe European expansion? What's the focus for this year and the next?
Yeah, expansion to Europe, and also to do V2 to reduce the cost. That's the main two objectives.
One more question, last.
Well, I think you started talking a little bit about the partnerships that you have in mind, but I'd love to learn a bit more. Like, if you had a dream partner, who would that be? And is that part of your strategy, or is that a long-term goal?
Well, I think in general terms, we would like actually to have an ecosystem of different partners, because this is an issue that's very complicated and very complex to solve. So in the theory of change that Puente Digital is developing, they would like to reach like the whole municipality of Choix, like the focus of the action. So locally, it would be like universities. But they are already partnered with the mayor and the secretary of social development. But then here in Europe and in ChangeNOW, it would be basically funding partners or people that would be able to support that journey of like development capacity. That's what they want.
Wonderful. And with that, we are concluding this session. Big round of applause for our amazing inclusion and education changemakers. I wish you only the best and much success. You're doing some amazing work. Keep it up. And all the best for the future.